This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
All the way from the A, you listen to My Favorite Lesbian on BRQ.
Hey, stay locked in with your favorite lesbian on Black Radical Queer. Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Jhavia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Hey y'all, this is Jhavia Nicole. Welcome back to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. Today I have my wife on with me. I was listening to the Love Hour podcast, and one of the things that they have done a couple times is they just kind of reflect on their relationship and kind of give, I guess, things that they've learned in a relationship based on a number of years they've been together. So they've done 12 lessons for 12 years or 15 for 15 years because they've been together, I think, since high school, and they're in their 30s now. So I just like the idea of that, and it's something that I was able to get a lot from just listening to them think about how their relationship has progressed. So that's something that I wanted to do with Courtney. So for those who may be new to the podcast, since I do have some new listeners who have come on since season 2 started, I'll let Courtney introduce herself, how we usually do, and then get into our conversation.
Hello everybody, to the new guests, to the new podcast listeners, welcome, enjoy the ride. To the old people, the People's Champ is back.
Oh God.
I know you missed me, I missed you. I'm glad to be back. Jhavia's wife, I'm the one who makes her so happy.
Oh my gosh.
We've been together for a long time.
Really? You don't know how long?
We've been together for 7 going on 8 years, and we like each other a lot. We're married because we like each other so much. We actually love each other.
What?
I know, it's crazy. We're both black. Yeah, so that's cool. I went to college. What else did I do?
Oh Lord.
I never like talking about myself because I don't think I'm that interesting, but
But this is us talking about ourselves.
Yeah, I know.
This is literally what this is for.
I don't know how to introduce myself.
Okay.
So
All right. So
tell them about me.
I don't know what to tell. You're my wife.
Yep.
You are 30 years old.
Yep.
You are from Pomona originally. We met in
California.
Atlanta.
Yep.
So we
At the
met.
Daiquiri Factory.
Oh Lord. We met when Courtney was in her last year at Georgia State, and I was already done with school because I'm old.
True.
You were a senior.
No.
Okay, so what were you?
A junior, I believe.
I'm thinking about when we started dating. You weren't a junior when we started dating.
Because when we graduated, it was the second time we dated.
Was it?
Yes. When I graduated, I'm sorry.
So when we graduated. I don't know.
But I remember, things are
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought. Anyway.
Okay, you might be right. But you know how things kind of was funny.
So anyway, the point is, it was a long time ago. We met and, started dating and all that good stuff. So now in January will be 8 years that we've been on this ride.
Preach, sister.
So yeah, I guess that's it. Courtney is a working professional. I will not reveal her job, but she works in, I guess you can say, what I want to say food services, but also kind of like professional development is kind of
professional development, food services, education, all that.
Yeah. So she does that stuff, and yeah. I don't know. That's about all I got.
I deal with microaggressions and get paid for it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate.
Don't you love it?
Microaggressions.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to talk about basically like 7 things we've learned over 7 years. And we'll be alternating. We both came up with 3 things that, we've learned. And then we have one thing that's just kind of like our mutual or our joint mantra, I guess you can say. So that'll be last. But Courtney is going to start with something that she's learned, which is you don't have to clap back.
Yes, I've definitely learned this, especially being somebody who has a smart mouth and who used to always feel like I had to have, the last word. And I consider myself to be witty at times. If you say something real slick and I have a great comeback ready, and I just, just ready to fire back at you. But I've learned that in a marriage and in a relationship, if you want to keep your partner, you have to learn to not do that. And you have to learn that you don't have to do that. There have been times when I got that 5 for that ass. But I just learned, in this moment, what's more important? Is it more important to let it go, or is it more important to hurt her feelings? Or, I have to prioritize that and look at the bigger picture. Do I want to move forward in this relationship, especially in the early days of our relationship when we were trying to build and move on before we were getting married, before we were engaged, trying to move forward and build. There were those times when you have to think about staying together, and do I turn this into a fight, or do we just let it go and say goodnight and leave it peaceful? You know what I mean? So there are a lot of people who are constantly fighting because they can't not have the last word. And so I've just learned to let it go. Leave it in my head.
I think, too, that, I like wit. So it's like, wit can be a good thing or whatever. I just think it's a time and place for everything. And so sometimes, like what Courtney was saying with, like, you have to make that decision, like, what's more important. I think, of course, if you're engaging in a way that's amicable, then it's like, hey, it's fine, because those are the times where we're just cracking the fuck up, where we're both, just saying ridiculous stuff.
It's a time and a place.
Where we're both saying ridiculous things and we're cracking up. And it's something that we can do kind of like naturally, and it's just one of the ways that we engage with each other. Like, we'll just, kind of talk shit to each other, about each other, whatever, without it just being ridiculous. But in a time where, if you're feeling more sensitive or more upset, or just kind of on the flip side of that, it's not, it's not like, oh, we're just chilling, joking around, but it's like, oh, there's tension, then that's just not the time to do it, even though that may be the reflex. And I think that it's, I think that's important lesson or whatever, that I had to learn as well. And to just have restraint, because, and my thing is, with other people, it's like, for me, I've been at the extreme. So I had times where I never said how I felt. So by the time Courtney came into my life, I had come from a place of like repressing a lot of stuff. And so I kind of went to the other extreme where I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna just say whatever. And then, but once I kind of saw how we engaged with each other, I, for one, realized that that wasn't fair to her, because that stuff didn't have nothing to do with her. Like, the stuff that has something to do with her, then yeah, we can discuss specifically, but my background of kind of keeping stuff to myself and not saying how I felt to keep the peace, that ain't have nothing to do with her. And that's a different thing. So it's like, I think it's one thing for you to exercise restraint and recognize, like, hey, we are on the same team. We're not battling each other, because I feel like the back and forth kind of turns into that. But I don't have to battle her, because we are on the same team, working toward the same goal, which is ideally to have a healthy relationship. But in a situation where if it's something that's really important, something that really matters a lot to you, really makes you feel some kind of way, whatever, then it is important to say something. And so I had to just get to a place of balance, because I went from one extreme of just not saying how I felt and always kind of taking on how everybody else felt. And I just was like, keep how I felt to myself, to just be like the peacemaker. And then I got so fed up with that I went to the other extreme of like, fuck it, I'm gonna say, like, I said what I said, I meant what I said, and just kind of, you know, that kind of thing. And that was combative. And so I recognized, especially early in our relationship, where sometimes we would have, and it wasn't very often because we don't like fuss a lot or anything like that, but I would just notice those times where I would be like more combative, and then I had to kind of step back and be like, where is this actually coming from? Like, what part of it is actually relevant to like me and Courtney specifically, and what part is just my baggage? And so I had to realize how much baggage I had, and I just didn't realize it until I saw like, okay, well, she's not doing stuff that people did before. She's being, you know, consistent and stuff with me. So why is this what she's getting from me? I had to like ask myself that. And then I would just start filtering stuff through that and be like, okay, do you really need to say that? No, Jhavia, you really don't. Like, that ain't helping nothing. Just let it go.
I think a big reason why we don't fight a lot is because we know that, you know what, this is not even worth pushing the issue. This is not worth a fight over who put the groceries up last. Like, these little tiny things are not worth creating a huge issue over. So, or having, you know what I mean, turning a little tiny issue, those little clapbacks, into something larger. So we both know when to pick and choose, like, this is something more serious, we really need to do it, or this isn't that serious.
Yeah, because sometimes those small things can add up, and so that's something that we can have a conversation about. I think when it's something that's actually more serious, we can actually have a conversation about it, but it's like you just have to gauge like how important something is to you, because if something's small but it's like, okay, this is a recurring thing, it can start to feel bigger to you, and then you get to a point where you're like irritated or frustrated or whatever, and that kind of creates that perfect storm for the clapback, basically, when it could have been addressed more calmly or more, you know, or differently if it wasn't like in the moment. And I think that's another thing too, is not feeling like you have to address something like right then in the moment. You know, there might be times like I might say like, oh, what's wrong? What's going on? Courtney might be like, oh, nothing. You know, I know there's something going on. If that's just not the time that she is in the place to talk about it, or vice versa, because we both can be like that. It's like, oh, is everything all right? It's like, yeah, even though it's not at that moment, doesn't mean that we will never talk about it just because we're not talking about it right that moment. It doesn't have to be instant. And I definitely used to feel that way, because I used to worry, like, oh my God, if we don't talk about it now, it's just gonna, you know, get worse. But we both need our space to like process and stuff like that sometimes. I mean, I think we do pretty well with like talking about stuff in a timely fashion, not letting it like drag out for a super long time, but sometimes you just need that time. And that's, I feel like taking a step back and taking that time is better than the clapping back. It's a better way to address it.
Taking the time to really process it, I think, is what makes you an adult. Because you can organize your thoughts. You're not just yelling and screaming, and you can come from a place of love and not a place of impulse and anger. And I think that's also what has helped us salvage a lot of things, because when you come to me with an issue, I know that you're coming to me from a place of love. So it makes it like that much harder for me to clap back at you with anger, because I know where you're coming from. And I mean, I know that you know, I've had people like come at me with stuff like with a specific purpose of hurting my feelings. Like it was no deeper motivation. I mean, because sometimes things you say are gonna hurt, you know, your partner's feelings, or someone that you love. It's gonna hurt their feelings, but that's not necessarily like your primary intent. But there are times where I know, like for a fact, like you are just saying this because you want to get a reaction out of me. You want to like hurt my feelings, and so I understand that, like, even if Courtney brings something to me and it's difficult and it's hard for me to hear or whatever, I know it's not like, oh, her primary motivation, you know, is to hurt my feelings. But that's something that I had to learn just over time with her, not because I felt like, oh, she's out to get me, but just because of my past experiences. So I was very defensive because I was so accustomed to having to protect myself. And so the whole clap back, it would be like somebody clapping back at me, but it was like you clapping back from your own internal stuff. It's not like I said something, you clapping back. It's just like you just coming at me, you know, with some craziness. Yeah, I mean, and it takes patience on the other end.
Yeah.
To do it. I ain't gonna tell you to stick in there and do it if you feel like, it's not something you can do, but
right.
I want to get that girl, so
I think it just depends on the folks.
Yeah.
I think some stuff, I think we both had our things with each other that we had to be patient, and we still do.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I just feel like it's worth it. I can't think of, it's like, I know we get on each other's nerves. I know
Mm-hmm.
we don't, like everything about each other, but I accept everything about Courtney, whether I like it or not, understand it or not, or whatever. I still accept it because I'm like, well, this is a woman I love, and it's like, is this thing so terrible that I'm gonna want to not be with her? No, I haven't encountered anything where I'm like, this is so bad. Like, this just really is so terrible that I can't even, be with you. It's not worth sacrificing our future, not to me. So, okay. So I guess I can go to the next.
Let's do it.
So the next thing is my, I guess, lesson. And I kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's don't be afraid to be vulnerable. So part of that is like just from, like my past experiences are having, like I was saying, oh, well, I know folks will like say certain things just to like hurt my feelings or stuff like that. I just had a lot of, I guess like just I was very guarded because I was so accustomed to having to protect myself. I initially was like a very open person, just like love, blah, 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 just very like, just wide open. And after that was taken advantage of or just like exploited so much, I just got to a place where I was done. And I mean, the unfortunate thing is that's when Courtney came in my life, when I just was like so done. I wasn't looking for anything or anything. Like, I just was like so done. And so even though like I enjoyed our time together, I was guarded. I didn't realize it. It took a long time actually for me to realize that I was so guarded. It was just things that I was there were ways that I was not being vulnerable that I didn't even realize because I just had kind of closed that off, and I didn't even realize it until it was something that she like pointed out to me, like, oh, well, you don't let me in, or you don't allow me to do certain things. And so I've had like, I remember an ex in the past telling me like, oh, you compartmentalize everything, like you keep so much like to yourself. And but for me, it's like, just because based on some of my life experiences, like that was how I was able to keep it moving. Like that was how I was able to push through things. So I had to learn that it was okay to be vulnerable, but I also had to have somebody in my life who it was okay to be vulnerable with. And I think that, I have like, of course, like friends and family and stuff like that, but I think there are varying degrees of vulnerability. And since Courtney is my wife, I do feel like there's a certain degree or level of vulnerability that is reserved for her. And I just had to realize it. And I think for me, part of it just took time. Honestly, it just over time, as I would like think about our relationship, reflect on our relationship, think about myself, and like how I was progressing as a person and me wanting to be a better person and be a better partner. It made me realize that I was holding back. So honestly, it took, when I had kind of like my little light bulb moment for real, because it was something that Courtney had pointed out before, but when it really clicked for me, we were 4 years into our relationship. So this was like, yeah, because at that point we were out here in LA. So, it just, I don't know. I just was like thinking about my growth and all this kind of stuff. And it just made me realize, that I wasn't being, as vulnerable as I should be with someone who is in this role in my life. And so at that point I was like, okay, I really want to make an effort to be more vulnerable. And then I told her like, I'm trying to do this. Like, it was just something that I was, it's like holding your breath and not realizing you're holding your breath, like until you exhale or something like that. Like, I just did not, like, it wasn't on purpose. But I had to understand basically like where that was coming from. It was coming from a place of fear, and just it was that, and it was habitual. Like, I was just so used to operating that way that I'm just like, oh, wait, I need to do something different. So yeah, I think that vulnerability is really important. And some people see it as a weakness, but I actually think there's strength in being vulnerable because it's not easy to do. And that you can really take any type of relationship, I think, to like the next level if you increase your vulnerability with someone that you trust. Like, if you feel like that's someone you can actually do that with. I'm not like wide open. I don't feel like that I should be like that with everybody. But I noticed a difference once I became more vulnerable with Courtney. And it's like I could understand that, hey, I can rest in this person. And I had never felt like I could rest in somebody. I'm used to like people come to me and blah, 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 you know, for stuff. But once I actually like exhaled, it's like, oh, you know, I can do this. Like, I don't have to just carry everything on my own.
Yeah, I mean, vulnerability is great. One of my mottos that I've had for a while before we even started dating was love like you've never been hurt before. And for me, it's it's just something that I say, and I know it's hard to do, but it's just something that I've always tried to live by. So my most serious relationship before you was cheated on, and then there was that little whatever in between. But but by the time I got to you, and even though I should have been guarded, my thought process going into it was love like you've never been hurt before. Just not pretend like it didn't happen, but don't take it out on you. Love like I've never been hurt before. And I know it's hard, and it's not like I was like none of that stuff wasn't in the back of my head. Right. But anytime it would come up, it's just repeating it to myself. Love like I've never been hurt before. Give everything to her. So that goes along the same lines of being vulnerable and opening up myself, because I've always thought that it's unfair to bring baggage to a new partner, and I have no idea where I got that shit from. I honestly got, I was young when we started dating. I was 22, going on 23. I don't know where I got that shit from.
Something like that, yeah.
But I don't know. And then even because we stopped dating at a point, and then when we started dating again, that was my mantra again. I should have been even more guarded going into it again, and I was just like, there's no way this is going to work if I'm more guarded with you. Like, I have to give it my all. Again, I have to pretend, or I have to love like I've never been hurt before. So, and that leads to heartbreak in a lot of situations, and sometimes it leads to love of your life being your wife. So, hey, one for 7. It worked for me, I guess.
My thing is too, I didn't, it was just one of those things I didn't realize, so it was like, it took, and I feel like part of what made it possible for me to realize that I was so guarded was because Courtney wasn't, so it's like, if she had been more guarded, maybe I would not have had that realization, because I do feel like she was very open with me, and not like it was just like, oh, she's perfectly open 100% of the time. It wasn't like that, but that effort to be open and receptive and all kind of stuff was always there. And so I had like something to compare myself to, because I'm like, okay, well, here's someone who, has expressed love for me and all this kind of stuff, and they're being open. But also part of it took time, because I had to see the consistency, because I dealt with a lot of inconsistency. So I think that once I got to see that, then I was able to feel more comfortable. But yeah, I was able to compare and contrast. Like, okay, well, here's something that Courtney does. Here's a way that she engages with me and I don't do. And yes, we're different people, but reciprocity is imperative. And so I feel like it may not manifest the same way. Like, what it looks like for her to be vulnerable doesn't mean that's what it has to look like for me to be vulnerable. But that effort, seeing what that effort was from her, and then asking myself, okay, what am I doing that is complementary to this? What am I doing that is giving that back to her, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think truth also goes with that vulnerability. Being truthful with yourself, being truthful with your partner. And being truthful has always been something, even since I was like a teenager. I'll be truthful to a fault. I'll be truthful to the point where it ends a relationship. that's never, even back when I was a straight up hoe, I would never get caught cheating, but I would be like, yeah, I cheated. I don't know. I don't know where I get this shit from, but I'm just extremely truthful. I'm extremely honest. I'm extremely open. So
the cheating was not.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It's weird. Like I was a cheater, but I was extremely honest about cheating. Like
what kind of life?
Yeah,
Lord. She's special.
I'm delivered. I'm sanctified now.
Oh, okay.
I'm a sancti-ho.
I'm delivered.
I'm a sancti-ho.
No, ma'am. Okay, so the next thing is, and you kind of touched on this some, but the next lesson that you have is step back, think, and apologize. Yeah,
so that goes along the line. Similar to you don't have to clap back, but the step back, think, and apologize is more so, I guess it goes along the line when you would say something to me and I would want to be defensive about it, especially if you're telling me I'm wrong. So I would have to kind of, like I said, step back, take some time, reconcile why am I being defensive, and then be an adult and be like, you know what, you're right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come at you that way, or, I apologize for being defensive about it, apologize for not listening, or whatever the issue is. Because a lot of times people are just automatically defensive about, or feel like you're attacking them when maybe your position on something is wrong. Because we talk about a lot of shit, just in the world, about different issues, politics, whatever, religion, whatever.
Ooh, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we're open on that level. So, and you challenge me on that level. So, if you say something and I'm defensive about it, it doesn't just die right there in that conversation. Right. I go back, me, I'm always in my head.
Yeah.
So throughout that day, there might be the next 2-3 days, I'm just walking around thinking like, what did she say? Why did she say that? And does that make sense? And you know what I mean? Like, but why, and I'm just constantly thinking about it, and I'll come back and like, you know what? In a week, we might discuss this some more, but I'm adult enough to say, you know what, you're right, or I was wrong, or, I apologize about that, I shouldn't have come at you that way, or, hey, babe, I'm sorry, I'm PMSing, or I'm upset right now, or, my mom...
if that's a sensitive topic, some
sensitive
shit
topic, or, my mama cussed me out yesterday, and I took it out on you, or, you know what I mean, but just taking that...
That's not a common...
No, okay, sorry, mama, if my mama ever listens, sorry, that's not...
No, I'm talking about, like, even you taking out... stuff, say, somebody else did something. No,
I'm just giving examples of things that could happen. I had a rough day at work today, and I'm snapping on you. Things like that happen, and so shit happens in life. But if you're not adult enough to fucking take a step back and say, you know what, I had a rough day, babe. I apologize. Like, people don't apologize, like, for whatever reason.
Right.
Like, I mean, if you're an abuser, don't constantly do it.
That's
but
a different situation.
Yeah, that's a different situation if you're constantly doing it and then apologizing. But if it's something that it's like, kind of out of the blue, it's like, okay, take a step back and think about, like, okay, why were you snapping? Like, why are you, all of a sudden engaging like that? Address your fucking mental issue. Like, address what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
Don't put that on your partner. And
I mean,
take the deep breath. Take the time to assess yourself and apologize to you. Apologize. That's the big thing.
I think it's so interesting to me because we live in a world that is very, or not even a world, a society, because the whole world is not this way. But we live in a society that is very individualistic, but also codependent. And so there's a lot of, basically we get all these messages that like, to do things on your own, but we get a lot of messaging to like, you have to get married and find a partner. And sometimes those things contradict each other. And I say that because when we're engaging with people, sometimes we are more concerned about being right than we are about moving forward in a positive way for both people or for all people involved. And so I think in a relationship, especially like a romantic, like, life partnership, it's important to like keep that in mind. Like, this is not about who's going to win. Like, if we can both move forward together in a positive way, then we both win. And it's like, if we don't both win, then we don't win. It's not, I can't be going back and forth and then, it's like, oh, I want no. Cause like, if it's one-sided like that, then we don't our relationship does not win in that situation. So I think that it's important to like keep that in mind, and for us to engage with each other in a way that we are keeping kind of our collective greater good at the forefront, as opposed to just trying to push our individual whatever ego, because I feel like it's ego and pride and stuff like that. But I don't feel like I could have the relationship with Courtney that I have if my pride was in the driver's seat. My pride is not in the driver's seat. So that means sometimes I say, I have to like share things with her that are very, very hard for me, that make me feel very vulnerable. But that's for the greater good of our relationship, because what good is it doing me to not do that and to not have those conversations? I think too, I feel like we have, I think it's a good thing that we challenge each other. I couldn't see myself being with somebody who just agreed with everything I said. And I don't feel like that's a requirement. We're individuals, and I think that we get to learn from one another by challenging each other and being able to have that space to do so without feeling like, oh, our relationship can't handle it. Because I do feel like that's the case. Like, some folks are like, oh, we have to agree. And that's not the same thing as keeping the peace, or like, that's not the same thing as compromising, or like what we were talking about earlier on about, kind of knowing what to push and what not to push, or knowing when to quote unquote clap back. That kind of thing, that's not the same. Like,
you know what, that goes back to us coming at each other with love. We challenge each other, but it's never disrespectful. It's never coming out of hurt. It's never coming out of anger. It's just respectful adult conversation.
Right. And it's like, my mindset is not, I'm trying to beat you. It's not a competition. Like, it's a relationship. But I think that certain things are ingrained in us, that we do approach stuff like a competition. Like, I gotta win. I gotta best this person, and like, whatever. And it's like, or force them to, think the way I think. And it's like, no. I think that we're able to have a much broader worldview in our relationship, because we do challenge each other and we do see things from different perspectives, but we have enough commonality to be able to be together. It's like I feel like those core things, those foundational things, we do have in common. Even if we don't necessarily express it the same way, we have common ground in those things that, matter the most. And then it makes for better, I think, better conversations and stuff too.
Yeah, you're not boring.
Because we cannot.
I get bored easily.
Yeah, we neither one of us could be with a boring ass motherfucker. Like, it won't last.
No.
We both are people who get bored, both very much in our head type of people. And so if you don't, for me, like, I know I can be in my head, and Courtney can definitely be in her head. We have to be able to be with somebody who can go there. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to be in your head, let me try to get up in there. Like, what's on your mind? What are you thinking? Let's actually talk about this. I couldn't be with somebody who was not able to do that. And so I think that because we have conversation, we're able to kind of externalize some of that stuff, because we both can be up in our head and just kind of ruminate. We both have that tendency, and just be thinking about shit like, I was thinking about, but we can actually talk about it.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have a team? You know how, and I only know this shit, well, I mean, in real life too, or, and usually depicted in heterosexual relationships. Mm-hmm. Like, a dude will have his boys and a girl will have her girls, and I'm like, girl, let me tell you what this nigga did today, and you know what I mean? Like, you have a team like that? Because, I don't have that.
You know what? I do not. I don't, like, because I talk, like, any issues that Courtney and I have, we talk about with each other. And I'm not the type of person, I don't take my problems, if it's something inside my relationship, I don't take it outside my relationship. Now, only time I'll mention something, a lot of times, is way after the fact. If someone comes to me with something like, oh, I'm going through this, and I'm like, oh, well, Courtney and I went through something similar, and I'm like, this is how we handled it, or whatever. Now, I do that, but in the midst of something, for one, a lot of times I don't want to talk to nobody, and two, I just don't feel like it's appropriate, which kind of will go to my next to the next thing.
Segue.
Yeah, it's a nice little segue. But yeah, so to answer your question, I don't.
Okay, me neither.
So
I wonder if that contributes to the whole competition thing.
I think so, because I do feel like some people can, to an extent, undermine your relationship if you allow them to.
From the outside, yeah.
Right, from the outside, if you allow them to. And so if you have these quote unquote teams, or you're going to folks like that, I feel like they can have the possibility of doing that. That's not automatic, and that's not saying that you shouldn't have people to talk to. But I feel like my primary person I should talk to about my relationship is the person I'm in a relationship with before I'm going to any outside and to any outside people. And I just have never, I've never sought out solutions externally for internal issues. It's just not I just don't roll like that, because I'm like, nobody knows us like we know each other and like we know ourselves. So how am I going to ask somebody else? It's just very personal to me. Our relationship, as open as I am, I'm like also private. And it's just very personal to me. I feel like it's for us to handle. And if we decide we want to kind of like talk to other people, or whatever, I feel like that's something that we should agree to together. And
not, to a therapist maybe.
Yeah.
It's just like, if I ask a friend, I don't know what the hell they could tell me about you that I wouldn't know.
Right.
After us being together almost 8 years. Like, what the fuck kind of advice can you give
right.
me? Like, I know everything. I know more about you than they would.
Right.
Unless I'm telling them all your business.
Right. Which is what happens in other, where it's like every time something happens, you go in and reporting back to other folks. I don't think it's healthy. I think it's healthy to have someone that you can talk to. I do think that is healthy. And sometimes you do need to kind of step back. But for me, when I step back, I don't step back and talk to someone else. I'll write or something like that. Like, I try to process on my own. In that moment, I don't like step away to somebody else and then come back to Courtney. I don't know. I don't feel the inclination to do that. Because typically if it's some kind of issue, then I'm stepping back and I'm like, okay, what's my shit? Like, what is it that I'm contributing? How am I really feeling? Because I know I'm moody, and I know I get, and it's just part of like an anxiety thing, or honestly part of depression. One of the things that people don't realize about depression is it comes with irritability, and it's usually something that presents more in men than women. It is a way that depression presents, but yeah, usually guys will seem like really like irritable, sometimes angry when they're depressed, and women tend to display more sadness. But I don't know, maybe because I got more testosterone. But it definitely irritability is one of the things. I have the sadness too. I don't have the rage and the that kind of thing, but I do have the irritability. So sometimes it's like, it's not like I'm even trying to like come across a certain way. It just comes out like that. It's just like, it is what it is. And so I step back and I'm like, okay, what's my part? I might be coming across like, I'm very like sensitive about like how folks respond to me, because I'm like, damn, am I coming across? I'm like hyper aware of like the way that I come across, because I know that it's filtered through this depression that's always operating. And so it's not intent like for my heart, I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling, trying to come across a negative way, but it just comes out that way. It's not my intent, but it's still the impact. So I do a processing about that. But anyway, so the next thing was have sacred things. So I was saying that what we were talking about was a segue, because I was saying that I just feel like it's appropriate for it to be in our relationship. So for me, I'm a poly person. However, for me, there are things that are exclusive to Courtney. It's not up for debate. And to me, it's very important. And I feel like even in other relationships in my life, like with family and like with friends and stuff like that, I feel like that can apply too. Like, you have things that are like special between like there's certain ways that me and my mom engage, just like special to me, that like it's not the same way her and my sister engage, or with my friends. Like, it's just not, the same across the board. But with Courtney in particular, there's more things that are just like, well, this is like between me and her. And even including like the degree of vulnerability. I'm not as vulnerable with anybody as I am with Courtney. It's levels, I can be vulnerable with other people, but I'm most vulnerable with her. So she's the person who would actually like see me cry, where nobody else, it's highly unlikely, that kind of thing. Or who I could just say like, hey, I'm dealing with a lot of grief. I'm really struggling with depression today. I'm just like, what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. She's with me, daily. So she sees that stuff, and I express, that stuff to her. So I feel like a certain level of vulnerability, certain forms of intimacy, that kind of stuff, I just think is sacred between us. And for me, I think it's important because I married Courtney for a reason. I didn't marry somebody else. And so I feel like having those things just reinforces like, hey, this is who you are to me and this is why. And like these are some things that we share that I don't share with anybody else. And so marriage is one of those things. And there's certain ways we engage and stuff are some of those things that are sacred to my relationship with her. And so it doesn't have to be anything like fancy or nothing like that, but it's just some stuff I'm just like, I just want to share with her. So for me, yeah, marriage, parenting, like I want to parent with her. That's it. Like, so those kind of, or even things like shared expenses, having a household. I know, folks who are poly who want to have like a house full of people or who want to do all this kind of sharing and code this and code that. And more power to, like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's just not what I want my life to look like. I want for those, what I consider to be those foundational things to be shared with Courtney. Because I feel like I have other experiences that I can share with other people. Like, okay, we can travel, we can do this, we can do that. Like, we can have a good time and still have great memories, but I ain't trying to have kids with nobody else. Like, I'm good. So, yeah, I think it's important to have things that are special to your relationship, whether it's big things like marriage and kids, whether it's smaller things like certain places that you go, or stuff you do, hobbies, activities, whatever.
Yeah. I'm not poly, so pretty much everything in this relationship is sacred for me, but I get what you're saying. I appreciate this the sanctity of our marriage. I'm glad you ain't in here pounding nobody else's pillows and
Oh,
cheeks.
Lord. Why you have to say that on the podcast? Oh, my God.
I'm happy you're not doing that.
Okay. Thanks.
I'm glad.
Thanks for that. All right.
What?
So we're going to go ahead and move on.
Wait, what?
We're going to go ahead and move on from that.
Wow. You see how
Really?
I get shut
You always
down?
have to take it there.
Wait, I'm saying that's...
No, I understand, but
that's
it's like
sacred.
the way you said it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know how you do.
I'm glad you're not making love to nobody else in this bed.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
I don't know what else.
That's fine, babe.
All right.
That's fine. The
I'm
people
glad.
get it.
I'm glad.
Look, don't stop trying to rephrase. Look, you already said what you mean. What are you doing? Okay, y'all, we're in our room. I don't know what she's like pointing at something. I don't know what's happening.
I'm happy we got our map. This is sacred space.
Our marital bed.
Yeah, it's undefiled.
Okay. I don't know about that, but
woo.
I don't know about that, but it's our marital bed. Okay. It's not shared with anyone else.
All right. Cool.
But I don't know if we can say. Anywho.
All right.
So the next thing.
Sorry.
You started it.
All right.
The next thing on the list is a lesson of yours is you can only control your own actions. So talk to the folks about that.
Yeah, you can only control, your own body, your own reactions, your own thoughts. Excuse me. And so basically this lesson is about if Jhavia does something irritating or silly or annoying or whatever, and I react by being petty or being irresponsible or whatever, I cannot say, oh, well, she did this, so I did that kind of a thing. I can't. Like, I'm only, I can only control what I can control. And if the outcome of it is a fight, I can't say, well, you started it kind of a thing, because at the end of the day, what did I do to contribute? Like the old saying goes, it takes two to tango. And so there's always, especially in a relationship where you're not fighting against each other, there's always levels and there's always, I guess, critical points where this could have stopped. You know what I mean? You don't always have to escalate it And so just know that control your actions, control your reactions. I'm trying to think of an example of. I had an example in mind, I'm pretty sure, when I said that initially, but, just, you can only control what you can control. Oh, I can't think of it.
I think for me, like, in terms of, like, you can only control your own actions, I think about not being reactive, because that it just doesn't solve anything. So, there can be, like Courtney might do something and it like makes me feel some kind of way or upsets me or whatever. And then in that moment, I'm just like, yeah, I may feel this way, but that doesn't mean I have to be reactive. I still get to choose how I get to respond, because we're adults and we don't get to make someone else responsible for our actions. We're in control of that. So I can't say you made me do such and such. Mm-hmm. Because I chose to, if it's like, okay, well, you did this thing, I didn't like it. Am I going to be, petty and doing some tit for tat shit because that's childish? Or am I going to be like, okay, I really didn't like that, but I'm just going to like release it. Like I could have held on to it. And I mean, I prefer not to give examples, but, it's just, it doesn't solve anything to like hold on to that. I don't feel like reactiveness solves anything. I do feel like it's important to express how you feel, but I don't feel like it's necessary to be reactive. Mm-hmm. I just think that there's better ways that we can handle any issues. And two, because I think a lot of times when we're reactive, it goes back to that feeling like defensive and attacked. And so I have to take a step back and just think about, okay, when Courtney did this thing, it wasn't some personal vendetta against me. This was just something that she did. Like, not taking everything personally. Everything ain't personal. I feel like that's the ego thing. We think everything is about us. Everything revolves around us. And I'm like, that is not true. Everything ain't about me. So she may have done this thing, and I'm like, that really bugs me. But in that moment, it wasn't like, let me do this so I can just piss her off. Like, that's not, because it's not how we operate with each other. So for me, I'm like, okay, since I know that, let me not respond as if that's the case, because I feel like being reactive, you're responding like, this is a personal attack against me. You just did this to piss me off. And it's like, no, that's not what happened. Like, she didn't put that thing right there to make me feel some kind of way. It's like, no, she's just going about, her day or whatever. So that's something that I keep in mind. Like, this is not a personal thing. Even some things that feel personal, it's not a personal thing. If you feel like it's personal, then that's something that can be discussed, but I don't feel like we should automatically react like it's personal.
Mm-hmm. I think the example I might have been thinking of is something along the lines of people say, like someone's a cheater and they say, oh, I felt like you neglected me, or, you know what I mean? Something along those lines, you neglected me, or, I thought you were cheating and things like that. Well, that doesn't give you an excuse to step out.
So why not address that instead of stepping out?
No one's forcing you to cheat. No one's forcing you. That you have to be responsible for your own actions. You chose to do that. Right. Just accept that you wanted to cheat.
Right. Now, like when people are like, well, you weren't there and you weren't. I'm like, okay, but so then you could have ended that.
Yeah, and you can end the relationship. There's a lot of other options besides cheating.
Right.
So
that wasn't your only resort.
Be on the side or pee on the side. Mm? And I guess that could work the same way. Just own that, but don't pretend like, oh well,
put a gun to my head and made me do it.
Yeah, no. So own your actions, or
But that's because when we take things personally, then we are reactive like that.
Like an adult.
But it's like, even in a cheating situation, like a lot of times when people cheat, it ain't even about their partner or whatever. This is their own shit. Mm-hmm. So, but it's very hard not to take that personally. I mean, I remember when I was like, how old was I? I was still a teen. I was probably like 17, 18. I don't know. But anyway, I was a teenager. And I remember I was like with this girl, just whatever. All loving her, whatever. And she cheated on me. And I cheated on her. And so at the time, I felt absolutely justified. I felt like, well, she cheated on me. I felt absolutely justified. But I was a teenager. So I grew the fuck up. And I'm just like, okay, well, actually, no. I had other alternatives. Like, I could have ended that relationship. You know what I'm saying? If I felt like, you know, I couldn't like forgive her or whatever, then I could have ended that relationship. I didn't have to cheat. And that her reasons around cheating, even though of course it felt very personal because we're in a relationship. So of course it's hard not to take that personally. But that honestly didn't have shit to do with me. She had her own shit. And ultimately, me cheating ain't have shit to do with her. I was like, I made up my mind that that's what the fuck I was going to do, and I did it. Mm-hmm. That's what that was. And I felt justified in it because of what she had done. But she ain't forced me to do it. That's what I chose to do. You know? So I feel like we have to have that very, like, hardcore accountability, you know? Very honest accountability and being like, okay, well, you know what? I did that and it was fucked up. Yeah. And we have both done that with one another where we're like, you know, that wasn't okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can acknowledge, like, yeah, I did this. It was fucked up and that wasn't okay to do that. But because we've had a chance to, because we communicate, we've been able to do that. I can't say that, for me, I can't say that that was a mutual thing in past relationships of mine. I got to a place where I started doing that, but then they weren't doing that with me. So. Right.
Yeah. Own your shit.
Yeah. Your baggage, your mistakes, because you're human. Yeah. Like.
Nothing wrong with being human.
Right.
But no one's forcing you to be a dick.
That's for sure. And then my next lesson I have is expect the person to change. So I say expect the person to change because, you know, when you look at long-term relationships, and I just look at, you know, I do long-term shit. Okay, when I look at, like, my relationship, when I look at friendships, when I look at, you know, like, folks who are important to me, I don't really do kind of fleeting things. Like, if I'm down for you, I'm down for you. But, you know, we can't expect folks to stay the same. You're not going to stay the same. They ain't going to stay the same. So in our relationship, we are absolutely not the same as when we first got together. I don't think that would be a good thing if we were, because we got together in our early 20s. Right. So in our 30s, we should not be the same. But I think that, you know, a lot of times you'll see when people talk about relationships, they're like, oh, well, you changed. But it's like, that is going to happen. Like, you're navigating through years and years with somebody. Like, how are they going to stay the same? You're going through different experiences. Our life doesn't look the same way it looked in our early 20s. Like, so of course we're going to change. Our circumstances have changed. Our lives have changed. So of course we're going to change and react in response to that. We're going to grow. So if one person is growing and changing stuff and the other person's not, it's going to be a disconnect. You know, you're both going to, you know, go through your stuff. But I think that, when you have that expectation, like, hey, I know that, you know, things are going to evolve and change stuff over time, then it allows you to not have unrealistic expectations. I feel like, I love Courtney and I accept Courtney. And when I tell her I accept her, it's not predicated on me understanding everything. I don't have to understand everything about her. And I can't expect to understand everything because she's going to be changing. So it's some shit she's not going to understand as she's, you know what I'm saying, until she, like, goes through the process and learns, you know, more about herself and continues to grow. I can't expect to be like, I got to understand all the things, because how am I understand some shit before she does? She has to, you know, get to a place of understanding with it first and then be able to relay that to me. But if I just have the expectation of her to change, then I can be receptive to what that looks like. I feel like as long as, you know, we have those foundational things that are in common, and we can, you know, that remains our foundation, then we can withstand changes. And the reality is, some stuff, like, we have, you know, similar values and stuff like that, but even the way some of that shit looks and the way it's playing out has changed. Yeah. Like, when we think about what it looks like for us to be married, like, you know, when we thought about this idea of getting married, having a home, starting a family, all kind of stuff, things don't look the way that we imagined them to look.
Hell, even thinking about when we got together, marriage wasn't even legal. Like, just basic shit like that.
Yeah, like, when we first got together, we couldn't even legally get married. And even, I mean, when I encountered Courtney, I ain't even plan on getting married. So,
period.
You know,
nigga changed her life.
Okay, relax.
All right, sorry, calm down.
So I had let that go, and I was just going to be a solo poly person. So it's like expecting that change. And Courtney is just not the same as when we first got together. She's just not.
Jhavia changed my life. You know what I'm saying? Met this lady, she came through. Started, giving me the feminist 101, womanist one. I didn't even know what the hell a womanist was. And she started giving me this shit. I'm reading books, researching shit. I was like, wow, I'm a whole new person. Like, thank you, queen.
Now she hardcore, bruh.
But even now I'm softening on that end, because I used to be hella cancel every fucking body.
Yeah.
Now I'm on a soft side. All right.
Yeah.
Calm down a little bit.
See,
like,
same.
You know what I mean?
I mean, even our politics and all kinds of stuff, like the core of it, like, hasn't changed so much, but it's like a lot of stuff has changed. When we first got together, I was still in that space of kind of like teaching folks and being willing to teach people.
Yeah.
And that changed. Well, that changed kind of early in our relationship, but that should change. I'm like, hell no. So I'm much more radical than I was when we first got together. I'm not nonviolent. I used to be, like, okay, there's alternatives, and I'm just like, no, I'm good. Like, if the hands is the way to do it, I'll bring the hands.
I think I'm still at that point.
Yeah, no, that's still you. But also the cancel thing, I feel like we both did get to a point where we just like cancel everything, everybody, and now we're kind of like more balanced, where it's like, okay, we ain't canceling every goddamn thing. Like, we want to be able to live our lives and enjoy things or whatever. But there's parameters, like certain shit I don't need to enjoy my life. Like I said on another episode, I'm like, I don't need to listen to R. Kelly to enjoy my life. Like, fuck that nigga, he's canceled. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't.
Fuck that nigga.
I'm okay. Like, I'm okay to never listen to him again.
Yeah. But yeah. So like on that end, we've kind of softened our stance. But from the non-violence end, I haven't. Like, I'm still very violent. But
that sounds terrible.
So when I kill people, no. But I've also just learned to avoid jail time. How to avoid it. You know what I mean? So before I would kind of now I'm trying to start a family and all that. So I'm not going to run fist first into the first white person I see.
There's more to lose, because before I planned to get, when I was just like solo poly, I was just like,
you plan to get arrested?
I didn't plan to get arrested, but I was just like, if it is what it is, I didn't feel like I had anything to lose.
Yeah, we're in our early 20s.
Right.
Well,
but at this
the
point,
last time we almost got arrested, we were a little bit later 20s.
But,
but now we're
things
trying
happen.
to,
But, but I have things to lose. And so, and I think about more than myself, basically. I have another person to consider. At the very least, like, I have to consider her if I don't consider nobody else. So, yeah, I mean, I think that just knowing, like, we cannot expect for people and things to stay the same. It's just not going to happen. The way that we engage in our relationship has grown over time. The way our relationship looks has grown over time. But, it's just, it comes with the territory. And I think it would be unrealistic for us to expect each other not to change. And then that would just lead to, like, the demise of our relationship. If it's like, well, you changed, you used to do, like, okay, what works for us at this time? And that's something too that we talk about, like, you know what I mean? Like, over time we'll be like, okay, what do these things look like for us now? Like, in the past we could say, this is what starting a family looks like for us. This shit's different now. Mm-hmm. It has recently changed.
Oh, it's been changing back and forth.
Right. It's been changing the bulk of our damn relationship, honestly. But we're able to have those conversations with each other and say, okay, well, what is it that, you feel like works for you at this time? Like, where do we stand? What works for us? That kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, expect change. And if it's not changing, it's dying, so.
Damn.
Nigga just dropped that knowledge.
Relax. You undermine it when you do stuff like that.
No.
Okay, wait.
Listen,
so pause,
everybody who's listening just did the same thing. They was like, damn, Coco is a fucking beast.
Okay. Anyway, so, no, I'm not high-fiving you or dapping you up. So, listen. So, Courtney does this thing.
Oh my God.
Where she will say something, and then she'll be like, oh, that was a good one. I'm like, you're not even giving me a chance to, like, respond. She's like, you take it too long. Really? Cause you just responded before I could even, like.
Nigga, when you do something dope, I immediately snap.
Okay. You know what? It's good that's not always the case.
Maybe you're just not doing things dope enough all
Excuse
the time.
you? I'm dope as fuck.
Exactly.
But anyway, it's good that she affirms herself, all right? Okay,
oh my
so
you're funny.
So
Cute.
okay, so the last thing is choose each other daily.
Oh boy.
Now it's like okay, so a lot of stuff that we talked about in terms of our lessons are very much like about ourselves. Like you can only control your actions, or like think step back is like you're about our individual actions. But I think choosing each other daily is something that's a deliberate mutual thing. We are not hostage in this. I don't feel like, I have to stay here because I don't have any other option. Like my whole life is going to fall apart. I won't have anywhere to go. That kind of thing, like where it's just like either codependency or, a hostage. It's like, I don't feel emotionally hostage. I don't feel physically hostage, in this relationship. So, I have the ability to make an informed consensual decision to remain here because it's where I actually want to be, not because I feel like I can't be anywhere else. But at the same time, I recognize that for Courtney's not obligated to be with me. We are married. She's still not obligated. Like if she's like, this bitch is not doing, she ain't it, bruh. She used to be it. She ain't it. Then that is her prerogative to do what it is she needs to do for herself. But the fact that we will, we prioritize, our relationship, and the way that we do that is by choosing each other. And I do feel like it's a very deliberate choice. I don't want to say, so I don't like when people say like, oh, relationships are so hard work, things like that. Like not saying, oh, it's just a breeze, because we are humans and we have fucked up stuff. So ain't nothing gonna be a breeze because we're human. Like we're inherently messed up, jacked up. But a relationship, I don't feel like it should be, a struggle. It shouldn't be a battle. It shouldn't be a tug of war. Like, so when people talk about like, oh, relationships are hard work and you have to like fight for, I don't feel like that. I feel like it's work. I feel like it's worthwhile work. I feel like it's work that I actually enjoy, even when it's difficult at times or when it challenges me. Ultimately, I enjoy it because I feel like our relationship is better and we're better people. Or I'll speak for myself. I feel like I'm a better person because of how we navigate this relationship. So that it actually really bothers me. I'm like, no, I don't feel like you should be struggling and fighting and doing all that. That's not how we navigate our relationship.
It's not a job.
Yeah, it's not a chore. It's not a job. It ain't always like sunshine and rainbows and shit. But I don't ever not like her. Even when I'm just like,
that's nice.
Even when I'm like, okay, this really annoys me or this really irritates me. Okay, but I know that I'm also an irritable ass bitch. So I keep that in mind too. But even regardless, it's like, okay, there's nothing that she does where I'm just like, that makes me kind of look at her differently as a person or something like that. So it's nothing that has stopped me from choosing her.
Yeah, so choose each other daily is the mantra, and that just essentially means when I wake up in the morning, I look over her beautiful face and I'm like,
oh, really? I don't know if I look beautiful then, but
you look beautiful all the time. But I'm like, I'm going to love this woman today. And it's not even that literal half the time. I mean, it could be something as simple as she says something smart in her, when I'm talking about earlier with you don't have to clap back. That's a moment right there. I'm like, you know what? I'm choosing her right now. I'm choosing I'm choosing us. I'm choosing not to get into a fight. I'm choosing not to pop shit off. Things like that. When it's like, I can tell she's having a rough day and she's irritated or irritable. When I go into the grocery store and I see flowers, I'm like, when's the last time I bought her flowers? And it's a choice I make. You know what? I'm choosing to, hopefully make her smile right now. It's little things like that. So it's every day. There's really not a day that goes by that I'm not making a decision that's concerning her.
Right.
In one way or another.
Even small, like,
tiny
sometimes
things.
It's very, very small thing. I mean, I think that we choose each other and we choose us, and that's not the same thing. Like, for choosing each other, like I choose Courtney, like her as an individual. Choosing us, I choose our relationship. And for me, those are, they're definitely, you know, interconnected, but they're not the same thing. For me, choosing her as an individual is like, I'm choosing to be receptive to the way she may change. I'm choosing to, you know, take it, like when she challenges me, take that in and stuff like that. But when I say choosing us, then it's like those moments where it's like, okay, well, instead of me clapping back or instead of me, you know, responding in this way, I'm not going to, because that's what's better for the relationship. So I think it is something that's deliberate. It's not so necessarily like I chose, like, you know, this like very like super literal, like I'm waking up in the morning like I choose you today, you know, not like that, but definitely in decisions that you know, that we make, that happens. If I'm just like, okay, well, today I'm gonna do this thing differently, or like, oh, she got off of work early, but I'm not going to ask her to pick me up because she's been driving. I'm just going to, you know, that kind of stuff. It's little things. Like, well, that was something today for me. I was like, I would rather ride home with my wife, but I'm not going to ask her to pick me up because she had to go far out today. So I'm going to spend my little coins and take this Uber to get home.
Yeah, or it could be major things like a situation I think we've talked about maybe on the first episode I was on, where there's a situation where someone wanted to sleep with me and we were in a bad place in our relationship, and I had a choice whether, you know, I mean, technically it was fine where, you know, she's poly, I'm a hoe, you know, it's really kind of within the rules, you know, should I sleep with this person? And I had to, you know, I was faced with that decision, and I chose us. I chose our relationship. Like,
yeah, it's like, just because I can do this doesn't mean that I should.
That however many minutes or whatever was not worth whatever is going to come after it, possibly ending the relationship, even though it was within the rules, because, well, you know, we weren't in the best of places. So, you know, every day you're faced with a decision, I think, of choosing that relationship. But just knowing that there is no obligation there, that it is a choice, I think that's what keeps that love there, keeps the energy there. Because I think a lot of people get comfortable, like, oh, you said a vow, we're married, you have to show up for me every day. You have to do this for me every day, and that's not true. It's not true at all. I don't own you.
Right. You don't lose your individuality because you're, you know, with someone. But a lot of times people do feel like that's the case. Like, oh, well, now you got to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Now you take it for granted. And that's something, I mean, yeah, I don't feel like we take each other for granted. I don't feel like there's anything that, like, Courtney does where I'm just like, well, she got to do that. Even, like, that's why I use the example of, like, the picking me up. It's like, okay, if push came to shove, she's not going to leave me stranded. But the reality is I had a choice to be like, okay, am I going to ask her to do this, or am I going to be considerate, you know, of, hey, I know she just got, you know, I've been working all day. She's been working all day too. I know she's tired. Oh, that's going to be her going out of the way. She got to go past the house to come get me. You know what I'm saying? I have an alternative. You know, it's not often that she says no. Now, she has been like, sometimes like, you know, I'm tired or whatever. But for the most part, she'd be like, okay, even though she just drove far out. So I'm like, but instead of me putting that on her, I'm like, well, let me be considerate and not even do that and not put her in a position, because she's not obligated to do it. Like, I know, okay, well, she will do it. That doesn't mean that she should. Should I even put her in that position, you know, to feel that way? So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an honor and a privilege to be with you, and to know that you're only here because you're choosing to be here and because you love me.
Yeah, you're right.
Ooh, I can't say anything.
Whatever.
When we turn this off, we fighting.
Whatever, nigga.
It's all fake.
Dang. Dang, it was like, I knew it. I knew these hoes was lying. They don't be fighting, they lying.
We fake turn it off, and then it's like all this scuffling.
I told you. Dang, you messed up on this part. You're supposed to say this. Now that you didn't go no.
God damn, motherfucker.
What?
That's my muffle sound.
Oh, okay. That's the muffle argument?
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, we not like we don't fuss or whatever, but I mean, things that just are more short-lived. Because I think we just be like, okay, like, it ain't worth it, bruh. Like, it's just not. But we're both human, and we both, we go through, so we both work the jobs we work. Sometimes shit get real, sometimes you just be tired.
Yeah.
So, it's like also us being able to communicate that to one another, where I'm just like, it was a day. You know what I'm saying? Just, if you're feeling some kind of way, I'm feeling some kind of way, us being able to communicate that to each other so that we also know to kind of look through that lens too. So that I'm not being like, oh, Courtney did this, I'm taking it personal. It's like, well, Courtney had a long day. Courtney did this, just like processing that way and taking that person into consideration. So yeah. Anyway, anything else you would like to add for the people? It's a long episode. Anything else you want to add for the people before we conclude our episode?
Love your spouse. Be an adult, own your shit, apologize, and choose each other. One love, my nigga.
I cannot.
Coco out.
I see. This is one of those moments where I'm like, I could be petty or I could choose the relationship. Am I going to be petty or am I going to choose a relationship?
Oh my God.
And, sometimes I'd be like, I don't know. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, so thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful information. People ask me about relationship stuff a lot. I don't know why, but people do.
So we've been together for a long time.
It's not just that. I mean, folks just tell me all their business and stuff. But yeah, and I think some of this stuff is relevant to, even if it's not like your spouse or partner in that way. Just people who are close to you and important to you. Nobody is obligated to you. Like, I feel like for a child, their parents are obligated to them to an extent, but then once it's like, when you're not an adult, then it's like, yeah, they are responsible for your shit. But then once you become an adult, you also become responsible for your own shit, your own healing, your own baggage, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're not obligated to one another. And so I think that's something that applies to different kinds of relationships. But anywho, that's it for now. I appreciate y'all listening. And that's it. I ain't got nothing to say. I think we've said enough. You good?
Yep.
All right. Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Jhavia Nicole. BRQ is produced and edited by Charmaine Fury, and the show's theme music was created by The Brothers Records. You can connect with us on Twitter or Instagram at Black Rad Queer. That's BLK RAD QWR. You can also connect with us on Facebook through the Black Radical Queer Podcast Facebook fan page or the BRQ discussion group. You can get Black Rad Queer merch on teespring.com/Black Rad Queer, BLK RAD QWR. And you can leave a voicemail, call in, ask a question, those types of things on the BRQ Google Voice line. And that number is 937-601-8647.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.